Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to do a deep dive into negotiation.
Ooh.
Negotiation.
But not just any negotiation.
Right.
We're going to explore the idea that emotional intelligence can be even more powerful than all those traditional problem-solving tactics.
Interesting.
When you want to strike a deal,
I like it. What do you think?
I think you're right to call it a deep dive.
Okay.
Because we're going straight to the source for this one.
Right.
Chris Voss.
Oh, yeah, Chris Voss.
Former lead international kidnapping negotiator
Wow.
for the FBI.
That's intense.
His book, Never Split the Difference, details his incredible journey from the high-pressure world of hostage negotiations to this unlikely stint at Harvard Law School.
That's right. Voss actually found himself going toe-to-toe.
Oh, wow.
With Professors Robert Mnookin and Gabriella Blum.
Big names.
Yeah. Experts in conflict resolution.
I see where this is going.
In a mock negotiation.
Okay.
Where they were the kidnappers.
Oh, this is great.
Holding his son hostage for $1 million ransom.
That's a lot of money.
Talk about a high-stakes situation.
Seriously.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
Voss, feeling a little, I think, outmatched,
understandably,
uses this seemingly simple technique that completely throws these seasoned negotiators off guard.
All right, let's hear it.
Calibrated questions.
Calibrated questions.
I have to admit,
go on.
When I first heard about calibrated questions, it's like, oh, this is going to be some complex psychological tactic.
Right.
But it's actually really straightforward.
It is. It is. They're open-ended questions.
Okay.
Designed to kind of subtly shift the power dynamic.
Interesting.
So instead of directly confronting or disagreeing,
you're
essentially guiding the other person.
Guiding them.
To problem solve for you.
Okay, so I'm not the one coming up with the solutions.
Exactly. Like verbal judo.
Whoa.
Using their momentum to kind of steer the conversation in your favor.
So instead of saying, I can't pay that much, he says, how am I supposed to do that?
Ooh, that's good.
Which kind of forces the professors to step into his shoes.
Right. It does. It does.
And start thinking of solutions.
Yeah, they feel more invested in the outcome.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're actively involved in shaping it.
So it completely changes the tone of the negotiation.
No, like,
instead of this confrontational standoff,
right.
It's now like, we're all in this together.
It becomes collaborative problem solving.
Yeah.
Voss doesn't stop there.
Oh, there's more.
He disarms the professors even further by using their first names and offering apologies, injecting a sense of warmth and personal connection.
Wow.
So the result speaks for itself.
What happened?
He gets his son released without conceding anything.
That's a win.
It's a powerful example of how emotional intelligence can win over traditional hardball tactics.
Even when you're in a room full of Harvard law professors.
It's true.
Voss's journey into the world of negotiation, though,
there's more.
Was just beginning.
What happened next?
He went on to attend Harvard Law School's winter negotiation course.
Where
he consistently outperformed his classmates.
Really?
Many of whom were steeped in these classic problem-solving approaches.
I bet they thought they had it all figured out.
Right.
And then comes Voss.
He even managed to, dismantle a student's budget.
What?
During a mock negotiation.
No way.
Using those same calibrated questions.
Those questions are powerful.
Much to the surprise of the instructor, Sheila Heen.
Oh, I bet she was surprised.
Now, you mentioned that Voss's success at Harvard wasn't just about using, clever tactics. It actually highlighted a fundamental shift in how we approach negotiation, right? One that emphasizes the power of emotional intelligence.
Right.
Can you unpack that a bit?
Of course.
For us?
Think about the prevailing negotiation wisdom of the time, which was largely shaped by the book Getting To.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
Advocating for a very rational approach, focusing on separating the people from the problem and finding win-win solutions based on objective criteria.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense in theory.
It does.
But as Voss's experience shows, real-life negotiations, especially those involving really high stakes or deeply personal issues, they rarely follow such a neat and logical path.
That's true. That's where emotional intelligence comes in. It's the ability to understand and manage emotions, both your own and those of the people you're interacting with.
Right. So how do you bring that into a negotiation?
Well, one of his key concepts is something he calls tactical empathy.
tactical empathy.
Now, this isn't about being nice.
Okay.
Or giving in to the other side's demands.
So what is it?
It's about using active listening to genuinely understand the other person's perspective, their motivations, their fears.
It's like you're seeing the world through their eyes, even if you don't agree with their point of view.
It's about understanding the emotional landscape of the situation and using that understanding to navigate the conversation.
Makes sense.
Effectively.
This makes me think about those tragic hostage situations like Ruby Ridge and Waco, where the FBI's initial attempts at negotiation failed miserably.
That's true.
Why do you think that was?
Well, those events were turning points for the FBI. They realized that traditional negotiation tactics, which often relied on logic and reason, were simply ineffective when dealing with individuals in those highly emotional states.
So what did they do?
It was a wake-up call that led to the formation of the FBI's Critical Incident Response Group.
That's a mouthful.
You can call it CRG.
CRG.
And this group took a very different approach. They recognized that psychological skills and crisis intervention techniques were just as vital as tactical maneuvers in resolving these types of situations.
So they
began incorporating principles of active listening, empathy, and de-escalation into their training.
So it seems like Voss's experience and the evolution of the FBI's hostage negotiation strategies were happening in parallel.
In a way.
Both emphasizing the importance of emotional intelligence in high-stakes situations.
And what's fascinating is that these insights, honed in such extreme circumstances, are actually applicable to a wide range of everyday situations.
That's so true. We negotiate all the time.
We do.
Even if we don't realize it.
From negotiating a salary raise to resolving a conflict with a coworker.
Or even just like deciding where to go to dinner.
You're negotiating all the time.
With your family.
Voss's approach, with its emphasis on emotional intelligence, can be incredibly effective in these everyday situations.
Makes sense.
It's about understanding that people are driven by their emotions, not just logic.
So how can we, as listeners, start incorporating some of these ideas into our own lives?
One of the simplest yet most effective techniques.
Okay, give it to me.
Voss advocates for is the use of calibrated questions.
Okay, so we talked about how he used, how am I supposed to do that? In the hostage negotiation. But this type of question can be applied to so many different situations.
You can adapt it to fit the context.
So instead of immediately agreeing or disagreeing or just like launching into a counter argument, we could try asking a question that shifts the focus, encourages the other person to think more deeply about the situation.
And it doesn't have to be that exact phrase. The key is to ask a question that genuinely seeks to understand the other person's perspective, their constraints, their needs.
So let's say I'm negotiating a deadline with a client who's pushing for something that I know is totally unrealistic. Instead of saying, that's impossible. Or we can't do it by then. I could try something like, help me understand how we can make this work. Given the current time frame.
That's a great example.
So I'm not just shutting them down.
You're not.
I'm acknowledging their request.
You are.
But also highlighting the potential challenges.
Yeah, and by phrasing it as a question, you're inviting them to collaborate with you.
So it's like
you're saying,
let's work together to figure this out. Instead of, you're wrong and I'm right.
It's about creating a more collaborative and empathetic environment where everyone feels heard and respected.
And that's something we could all use a little more of.
Couldn't agree more.
It's not just about the words we use, though, right?
No, absolutely not.
Voss also talks about the importance of nonverbal communication.
Yes.
Things like tone of voice, body language.
Absolutely.
All that.
He suggests mirroring the other person.
Well, like a mirror.
Yeah, their body language. Their speech patterns. Not in a way that's like mocking or anything.
Right.
But subtly. To create that sense of rapport and connection.
Interesting.
It's about finding those subtle ways to say, I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because it seems kind of counterintuitive.
I guess so.
Like, wouldn't mirroring someone make them feel like you're not being genuine?
It can if it's done poorly or with the wrong intentions.
Right.
But when it's done subtly and with genuine empathy, it can help build trust and understanding.
That makes sense.
Think about it.
Okay.
When we feel like someone is truly listening to us and understands our perspective, we're much more likely to open up.
Yeah, I guess.
And be receptive to their ideas.
It's almost like you're speaking the same language.
It is.
Even if you don't agree on everything.
Exactly.
So we've talked about calibrated questions, tactical empathy, even mirroring.
Right.
Are there any other key takeaways from Voss's approach that you think would be helpful?
One thing that stands out to me is the power of labeling emotions.
Labeling emotions. What do you mean by that?
This is about explicitly acknowledging the other person's feelings.
Right.
Even if they're negative.
Okay.
So instead of ignoring or dismissing their anger or frustration, you might say something like, "It sounds like you're really frustrated with this situation."
Now, wouldn't that just make things worse?
Well, you might think so.
If someone's already angry, wouldn't pointing it out just make them angrier?
Actually, the opposite is often true. When you label someone's emotion, you're showing them that you understand and validate their feelings. It takes the sting out of the emotion.
Interesting.
And can actually help to de-escalate the situation.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like
you're saying, I see you, I hear you.
Exactly.
Your feelings are valid.
It can be incredibly disarming.
Yeah.
Especially in situations where there's conflict or tension.
So it helps shift the focus?
It can help shift the focus from me versus you to us versus the problem.
And that's really what effective negotiation is all about, right?
It is.
It's not about winning or losing.
No.
It's about finding common ground.
Yes.
Building relationships.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, achieving a mutually beneficial outcome.
You got it.
And while Voss's background is in high-stakes hostage negotiation, his principles and techniques are so versatile.
They are.
You can apply them to all kinds of situations.
Absolutely.
Personal and professional.
It's like he's giving us a roadmap.
It is.
For navigating the complexities of human interaction.
Because at its core, negotiation is really just communication.
It is.
With a purpose.
And the better we understand the emotional dynamics at play, the more effectively we can communicate and achieve our goals.
So let's say I'm trying to negotiate a raise.
Okay, good example.
With my boss.
Okay.
How could I use Voss's techniques?
Well, first, I'd encourage you to think about your boss's perspective.
Okay.
What are their priorities?
Okay.
What are their constraints?
Got it.
Try to understand their motivations.
Okay.
And anticipate their potential objections.
So that's tactical empathy in action.
It is.
Putting myself in their shoes.
Exactly.
Okay, so once I have a better understanding of their perspective.
Then you can start to craft your approach.
And I could use...
You might use calibrated questions.
Okay.
To uncover their needs and concerns.
Okay, so for example,
let's say
instead of saying, I deserve a raise.
Right.
I could say something like...
You could ask...
What would it take for me to earn a raise?
That's good.
So it shifts the focus.
It does.
From entitlement to performance.
Exactly.
So I'm inviting them to be part of the solution.
You are.
And if they express any concerns or hesitation, I could use labeling.
You could.
To acknowledge their emotions.
Right.
And show them. I understand where they're coming from.
So for example, you might say...
Give me an example.
I understand that budgets are tight right now, but it shows that you're not just pushing for your own agenda. You're acknowledging their realities and constraints.
That makes a lot of sense.
It helps build trust and create a more collaborative atmosphere. What do you think?
This is making me realize I probably approached negotiation.
Oh, yeah.
All wrong.
How so?
I tend to get so focused on my goals and objectives.
Right.
I forget that the other person has their own set of priorities.
It's a common mistake.
And concerns.
But the good news is...
What's the good news?
With a little bit of awareness and effort, we can all become more effective negotiators.
Okay.
It's about shifting our mindset.
From what to what?
From I win, you lose, to let's find a solution that works for both of us.
It's about creating win-win situations.
It is.
Where everybody feels good about the outcome.
Exactly.
And that's where Voss's approach really shines.
I think so.
He teaches us that negotiation doesn't have to be this adversarial or manipulative thing. It can be positive.
Absolutely.
Productive.
Yes.
Strengthens relationships. Leads to better outcomes for everyone involved.
You got it.
I love that. It's like he's saying, hey, we can all be better communicators.
Right.
Better problem solvers, and
Yes.
ultimately better human beings.
That's a great way to put it.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive
Yeah.
into Chris Voss's approach to negotiation, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember and maybe even try out in their own lives?
One thing that really stands out to me is the power of asking how questions.
How questions.
Yeah. Instead of responding defensively
Right.
or launching into a counter-argument, try asking how questions that encourage the other person to think critically and come up with solutions. It can be incredibly disarming and create a much more collaborative and productive environment.
Awesome. I like it. It sounds like using those how questions can really change the whole dynamic of a conversation.
It really can.
It's like you're inviting the other person to be your partner in problem solving instead of your opponent.
It takes the pressure off of you
to
come up with all the answers and puts the onus on them to think creatively and find solutions that work for both of you.
And it's not just about finding solutions, is it?
No, not at all.
It's also about building trust and rapport.
Absolutely.
Which are essential for any successful negotiation.
When you show genuine curiosity and a willingness to understand the other person's perspective, you're creating a foundation of trust and respect that can make it much easier to reach an agreement.
It's like you're saying.
It's like saying, I value your input. I want to hear what you have to say.
And that can be incredibly disarming.
It can.
Especially in situations where there's a history of conflict or mistrust.
Absolutely.
So it's about shifting the focus from me versus you to us working together.
Exactly.
To find a solution.
That's it.
This is making me think about how often we jump into conversations.
Ready to defend our own position. Or just argue our point of view.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
And we forget that listening is just as important.
Maybe even more so.
As speaking.
Active listening is a crucial part of tactical empathy. It's about truly hearing what the other person is saying.
Not just like waiting for your turn to speak.
Not just waiting to jump in.
So it's about paying attention.
It's about paying attention to their words. Their tone of voice. Their body language.
Trying to understand.
Trying to understand the emotions behind their words.
And when you really listen to someone.
When you truly listen, you're showing them that you respect them. That you value their perspective. And that you're genuinely interested in finding a solution.
That works for both of you.
It's funny because we often think of negotiation as this adversarial process where you have to be tough and assertive. You got to play hardball to get what you want.
But Voss's approach.
It's almost counterintuitive.
It is. He's saying that empathy and understanding can be just as effective.
Really?
If not more so.
Than hardball tactics.
It's not about manipulating people or playing games.
It's about really understanding.
It's about using emotional intelligence to create a more collaborative and productive environment where everyone feels heard and respected.
It's about recognizing that we're all human beings with our own needs and fears and aspirations.
And when we can tap into that shared humanity, we can achieve some pretty amazing things.
I love that. It's like he's saying,
like what?
Hey, we can all be better communicators, better problem solvers, and ultimately better human beings.
That's a great way to put it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chris Voss's world of negotiation and emotional intelligence, what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
The most important thing to remember is that negotiation is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned and improved with practice.
But don't be afraid to experiment.
Don't be afraid to experiment with some of these techniques, even if they feel a little awkward or unfamiliar at first.
You'll get there.
You will. And remember, it's not about becoming some sort of master manipulator. It's about using these insights ethically, empathetically, to create more positive and productive outcomes.
For everyone.
For everyone involved. It's about recognizing that we all have the power to shape the conversations we have and the relationships we build.
So go out there.
Go out there and negotiate with confidence. Empathy, and a genuine desire to understand the other person's perspective.
You might be surprised at what you can achieve.
You really might.
And until next time.
Yes.
Keep diving deep.